Continuing, we stopped in yesterday mid-sentence, trying to understand how it's possible. We discussed about Plag Mincha and the Machlok Rav Yehuda and the Chachamim, where the Gemara says that where the Shulchan Aruch paskins that a person has to always go like one of the shitot. So how is it possible that a person prays Plag Mincha one day and then the next day he does early Arvit, and then he does regular Arvit? How is it possible to jump around? So there's a Bet Yosef. I want to read you guys the Lashon. Of the Bet Yosef. He writes, "V'achshav noagu ha'olam la'akel bekach af al pi shemitpalelim tfilat mincha achar plag mincha." Even though the tzibur prayed tfilat mincha after plag, lo nimna'u mitpalel arvit gam kim ba'oto sha'a. We're not going to refrain from praying arvit at that time. V'af agav david trei kuli the satun adad. Even though it's two leniencies that are being soter each other, because if you're going to go like Rabbi Yehuda and pray mincha after, if you're gonna go like the Chachamim and pray mincha after plag, that means that you have to go like the Chachamim and pray arvit after nightfall, and you're praying arvit before, you're praying arvit already by plag, right after plag. So he says, "Efshar sumchim amash shekatav harosh b'shem Rabbeinu Tam de v'tfila hikilu." That by tefillah we're lenient. So over here basically comes the idea of the minhag of the Sfaradim in all of the Sephardi countries. They all had the minhag to pray mincha arvit back to back, even though it's not in the same time period, even on the same day, which means not only was the minhag to be lenient on a different day, let's say today I want to pray plag and then tomorrow I want to pray regular, that's also allowed, but even on the same day, mamash on the same day, if a person wants to pray, let's say mincha at 7 o'clock, which is after plag, and then pray arvit at 7:15, that would be allowed based on the minhag that the Beit Yosef brings down. Now again, it's not the greatest, because the Shulchan Aruch writes clearly that's not. The person should always follow one of them. So even though he brings this down on the Beit Yosef in the halacha, he doesn't bring it. But since the minhag was always to be lenient, a person has what to rely on to be lenient to pray mincha arvit back to back. But again, it's not the best situation. It's much better to pray mincha before plag and then arvit after plag, or to pray mincha right before shkia and then arvit after shkia, or even better, to wait until the time of nightfall, the time of tzet, in order to pray mincha arvit. But at the end of the day, we cannot say that the minhag is on the basis, because that is the minhag, and that is where the leniency comes from, and that's what people rely on in order to pray mincha arvit back to back. Also, the Arizal brings down that he used to pray all three. That the Ben Ish Chai brings this down, and the Kaf HaChaim and the Yosef, they all bring this down. That the Kitvei Ari brings down that all three tefillot need to be done during the day, and that's why that's also another smach for the leniency. But again, it's always better, tov v'nachon, to pray arvit at Tzeit Kochavim, and this is only, by the way, this leniency only exists for a minyan. If you're praying by yourself, it's asur al pi halacha to pray in Tarti Desatri time, like meaning, let's say at 7 o'clock, mincha, right away arvit. You have to this leniency is only with the minyan. Also, another leniency that they bring down, which is not so practical nowadays, is because it will be difficult for people to come back. They're already here for mincha. You're going to tell them to go home and come back. It's going to be difficult for them to come back. They're not going to come back, and that's another leniency. Which nowadays, Baruch Hashem, there's many minyanim. It's not so. I don't think that leniency has such a strong basis nowadays. But it used to be a thing back in the day. People would have a hard time coming back if they're telling them, okay, go home, come back. It was dark outside. It wasn't lighting. It was a much different situation. Back in the day, people used to go home. They wouldn't leave the houses at night because of the danger of leaving the houses at night. So that's also where the minhag came from. And once the nahagus type of thing, that the minhag has a basis what to rely on. But again, it's much better to try to pray either kishitat Rabbi Yehuda or shitat Rabbanan before plag and after plag, or before shkia and after shkia, in order to satisfy all the opinions.